Hey everybody, I'm Dee Lisa and I'm a dream doula.
And I'm Molly Joe, and I am a coffee instructor and a health coach.
Molly Joe, it's so fun to see you. And by the way,
You
whenever
too.
we talk about coffee, it's so interesting because you've been basically working in and running this drive-through coffee shop for how long now?
Almost 8 years.
Wow. 8 years of coffee,
It's been
making coffee
crazy.
and sandwiches and snacks for people.
Mm-hmm.
You told me something the other day that kind of blew my mind, and you said, I've watched people's attention span get shorter
Mm-hmm.
years that I've worked there. And I would imagine 100% of the time, if you're in a line in a drive-through coffee shop, you already have a short attention span.
That's probably the case. Or I think some people just don't want to get out of their car. I didn't consider the difficulty of like a mom coming through with her kids and how, I mean, I don't have kids, but I guess I have a dog, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get out of the car with all your stuff and where are you going to put the dog and where are you going to sit. And this mom came through one morning and she said, I come here because I have kids. I don't want to deal with getting them all ready to go. And if we just come here, we could just wear our pajamas and no one has to get out of the car and there's less crying and we just get our stuff and we leave. And I thought, okay, she really doesn't care how long she waits. She's just here for the convenience and that's kind of cool. Yeah.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
But yeah, the attention span thing is so real. I noticed when I first started working there about 7.5 years ago, social media was prevalent, but there weren't any videos yet. There weren't any like quick, there wasn't scrolling, wasn't as much of a thing. And I think people were just generally less sucked into their phones.
Mhm.
And I noticed that a lot of people, when they were waiting for their drinks, would make conversation or just kind of like stare into the sky or fidget with something in their car, or some people would fall asleep.
What?
If
Wait.
there was a really long line and you could tell someone just was like really tired, sometimes you'll look out and you're ringing the bell because the line's not moving and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And then you realize two cars down, there's somebody that is just like, they're just like leaning on the window and just, oh, they're just sleeping. And you have to be like, hey, I've had to go out there and wake them up really quick.
Oh my
Like, what?
goodness.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just so tired. I'm like, it's okay. It's
That's
okay.
okay. We're about to caffeinate you.
But
Wow.
yeah, the attention span is interesting because I notice people just don't make as much conversation. It's challenging. I like to talk to people and I have a hard time even getting their attention to hand them their beverage these days. A lot of people are I notice that's the normal thing to just look at your phone instead of people fidgeting around in their car or playing with the radio or just doing nothing and thinking. People instantly put up their window, or if they don't put up their window, they just like get out their phone and they're just scrolling. Um,
Yeah, you and I talked the other day about the fashion now, or the idea now that maybe you would go somewhere and not be on your phone.
yeah, what did you call that?
I can't remember the name of it now. It's like
Like a
it's
digital
digital,
detox, right?
right on. So a
Yeah.
digital detox, you're gonna go somewhere without your phone, or you're gonna let them lock up your phone and then you get it when you leave.
Hmm.
You don't have a phone, you don't have a computer, you don't have a digital pad. For most people, that makes them feel anxious.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I was just reading something online about the digital detox, and it said something like all you need is 3 hours to reset and come back to yourself. 3 hours of not scrolling, not looking at your phone, not constantly checking for a text message or whatever. And yeah, I'm sure there's just so many different hobbies that people used to have. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately about how just like board games or little gadgets that like kids used to have. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw this kid with a toy yesterday and it occurred to me that kids don't have as many toys these days because the toy is the phone. or the tablet, and that they're
Yeah,
saved on the tablet. But I think that we're losing something in that because it's just so distracting and it's just so entertaining to look at a screen that
true.
it's why would you look away? I mean, it's hard to look away as an adult with like control. You know, I have
Right,
control
yeah,
over certain things and I can resist certain things that I really want, but I'm like, oh, it's not good for me. But for some reason, the phone is really hard. It's hard for me to look away or stop scrolling or, not watch the TV if it's on in the room. And I think, of course, why wouldn't a kid want to do that too? But
sure,
yeah.
sure. So besides people being distracted and having shorter attention spans, are they buying different drinks now than they used to buy 7, 8 years ago?
I would say probably not. There is a new obsession with cold foam that I think is strange.
Cold foam. How do you make cold foam?
Well, we don't make it at the coffee shop that I work at, but sometimes I think about it. It's as far as I can tell from the recipes I've looked up, it's cream, and some stabilizer in there, and then you froth it up. You like froth it with a one of those little whiskers, and then you pour it on top of a drink. So it's kind of like I think it's more of an aesthetic thing. I noticed there's a new the obsession that gets more and more drilled in every year is like more people want the drink to be more aesthetically pleasing than it ever was. I think just looking at a drink in a plastic cup and it needs to look right, it needs to look good. I think maybe 10 years ago people were just happy to get an iced coffee on the go, and now it's becoming it's a very connoisseur industry to go get an iced coffee and you can pretty much specialize it however you want. And then there's all these fancy blended drinks, and it's interesting because I noticed people under a certain age order really fancy beverages, and then most people over a certain age are just like, just a black coffee. So I think the more complicated the times get, the more complicated people's drink orders get, and they see something online and they want to try it out. This lady came today and said, I just heard about a matcha frappe, which is interesting because, okay, we have matcha, but the word frappe is from McDonald's. A frappe is like this drink that McDonald's has branded. It's basically just a blended coffee drink. I think they probably make like a chocolate one and I don't know, some other flavors. I don't know, because I don't order frappes. But you'd be surprised how many people have seen this advertisement. They register frappe with a blended coffee and then they come order a fill in the blank frappe or a fill in the blank frappuccino because Starbucks has done the same thing.
So
Starbucks has branded frappuccino.
what do you give them then? Do you make a blended drink for them and let them think it's a frappe even though they're not at McDonald's?
I normally just say we call it a blended whatever, and I'm happy to make that for you. We could probably make something similar to what you think of as a frappe. You want to try it? Because it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be
Yeah.
something similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
And since they just heard about it, they don't even know what it is anyway.
She's not sure, but I think maybe I don't know what that means. I don't know if her friend told her about it
Mm-hmm.
or she just saw one because I think some people don't know what to order and then they see something, especially the blended drinks always get people, the person in the line behind them is like, what was that? What did they
Yeah.
get? Like, what was that green blended drink? And then they want it. They're like, I want to try that. Give me one of those.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember when I first
Me too.
started drinking coffee in coffee shops, my father was still alive. He's like, why'd you spend that much money? $3 back then. Why would you spend $3 on a cup of coffee? I used to get it for 10 cents or a quarter or a dollar or whatever.
Right.
And then at some point, it occurred to me I was just really drinking a lot of milk
Mm-hmm.
because it was like this much coffee and this much milk.
Yeah.
And then
Or
it's like,
half and half.
oh,
Or oat
yes.
milk, depending on what people get. But it is interesting how much of it is milk. And I've noticed the majority of people that drink lattes or coffee in general, um, well, maybe not the majority, but a significant portion of the customers are not aware of like the difference between the milkiness in different drinks. And someone came yesterday and said, I'd like an iced caramel mocha coffee. And then I was like, well, does she want an iced coffee or does she want an iced mocha? And I asked her, do you want an iced coffee with a little bit of chocolate and milk, or do you want an iced mocha with espresso and milk? And she was like,
I
looked
wouldn't
at me like,
know. I
what?
wouldn't know. I wouldn't know the difference between that. So,
Really?
yeah, because you're the one making the coffee, and it's like, what's the difference between a mocha and a?
And they taste so different. So I wanted to make sure she was really getting what she wanted because an iced caramel mocha is chocolate and caramel sauce, double shot of espresso, bunch of milk, and then you can do it hot or iced versus what I thought maybe she was trying to order, which she ended up ordering at the end once I explained the two, an iced coffee, which is just iced drip coffee, very strong coffee flavor, and it'll fuck you up. That'll be very strong, a good amount of caffeine, way more than the double shot of espresso, probably 4 times as much
Okay.
for this size. And I said it's going to taste more like coffee because there's just going to be this much cream and this much coffee versus a latte or a mocha, which is this much coffee and this much milk. So I'm like, one's gonna taste kind of milky, the other one's gonna taste more like coffee. Which one do you want? She's like, the coffee. Okay.
All
It's
right.
probably jacked though. Because
How
the
many coffee, how
another
many different coffee drinks can you serve someone in your coffee shop?
combinations are endless. Sometimes people order things I've never made before.
And you make them.
And I'm like, how is that even possible? I've worked here for almost 8 years and you're ordering a drink that I've never made before. That's weird. People will put the weirdest combinations together. Like someone ordered a lavender watermelon soda once. Sounds kind of weird, right? But kind of good at the same time.
Mm.
Something that I think that I wanted to say earlier is I don't think a lot of people know this, but the drip coffee, just an 8-ounce drip coffee, has significantly more caffeine than a double shot of espresso.
Isn't that interesting? I would think
Yeah.
espresso has more caffeine in it, but really a regular cup of coffee has more caffeine in it.
Yeah. And I find that the regular, probably because it's more caffeinated or because it sits in the beans for longer, I find that the drip coffee is way more harder to digest for me personally. Like if I just
Mm.
have that on an empty stomach, my body's like, oh, what did you just do?
Yeah.
But if I
But you
have,
could have an espresso and it wouldn't be that harsh.
yes, or even better, like an espresso with some milk. But even if I have drip coffee with some milk, it's like, my body's like, what happened? This is so, I just feel like it's really acidic.
I remember someone telling me this is how you should drink an espresso. You have a tiny little cup, there's espresso in there. You pour sugar in it until there's a mound of sugar. You can see the sugar
Right.
over. You stir it up, drink it down. I'm
This
like,
seems to be the Italian way. I don't
oh,
know. I don't know, or Italian American way. I've heard someone else tell me that their very good Italian friend that was the only way he would drink espresso. He would pour sugar on until there's a little mountain and then stir it up until it's thick, nice and thick, and all the sugar is really mixed in, and then lock it back.
yeah, like a shot. Drink
Yeah.
it in one gulp.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Paris, if you ordered espresso, it came with a glass of water and a teeny tiny cookie. Like the cookie was the size of my pinky finger. But
A
that was
nice
probably
idea.
so you could gulp it down and then wash it down with something else.
Ever since you told me that coffee beans cleanse your palate, get rid of garlic breath,
Yeah.
I really do notice that if you eat an oniony or garlicky meal and then you finish it with a cup of coffee, it's fine. I feel
What?
like
You don't
it's not
actually
as
have to chew
garlicky.
the bean?
You don't have to chew the bean. It just works if you drink some espresso.
I remember learning that at an Italian restaurant once. They gave you like two or three beans
I love that.
at the end of your meal.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, wow. When you, okay, so you go to the coffee shop pretty early. What time does the coffee shop open?
Opens at 6 on the weekdays, 7:30 on the weekends.
Mm, so you have to be there pretty
At 5.
early
Yeah.
at 5. Wow. And coffee. You told me once how many seconds it would take you or how many minutes it would take you to make a regular coffee drink. And it was a really short amount of time. What was that?
Depends on the drink, but some of them are real nice and simple, like an iced latte. It's like the easiest drink you could make, pretty much.
Okay.
Or a drip coffee. For
Well,
all those
drip
that would
coffee,
like to go
obviously.
to a coffee shop and order an easy drink for your barista when there's like a 25-person long line, just order a drip coffee.
That would
Or
make me happy.
an iced latte, because an iced latte, you just pour milk into a cup and dump a double shot of espresso in there, and then you put some ice on top. It's pretty simple. Drip
Then you
coffee
don't
is
have to
always on
foam
time.
it. You don't have to
Yeah,
foam anything and
yeah,
mix anything, get the syrups out and all
yeah,
that.
pretty much.
Mhm.
You don't have to, it's the stirring that takes a long time. People that are like, I want 8 sugars, I want like a coffee with 8 sugars. Like, takes quite a while to actually whisk in 8 sugars, 8 teaspoons of sugar to something. Some people want 12 teaspoons of sugar. I know, I should just have a quarter cup scoop in there and just,
That would be 16 teaspoons, by the way.
some people order that.
OMG.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of stories do people tell you when they're not scrolling on their phones when they come through the coffee shop?
Full moons are always interesting because people have a lot of realizations and they order more espresso.
Wait, wait. So you could
Yes, there's trends based on the moon.
I
Yeah.
love it.
You wouldn't think that there would be, but of course there is. Of course there's trends. It's like when when the moon is full, especially if it's like, I mean, the full moons are always an amplified time, but especially if it's something like a fire sign or a water sign in like the full moon in Sagittarius this past few days, people are not doing well. I will tell you
I-
that. People,
Isn't the full moon tomorrow as we're recording this?
it looked full last night, but that makes sense that it would be tomorrow. It looked almost full.
Okay.
So a lot of people ordered quad shots today. Like a lot of people that typically just have 1 or 2 shots or a drip coffee, they wanted a red eye instead of a regular coffee.
What's a red eye?
I a red eye is espresso inside drip coffee.
What? Okay, drip,
Really
a
strong.
cup of drip coffee with a shot of espresso.
Yes. It's like for those days when you really need help, when your eyes are just red. You need
Okay. Okay.
and um I lost my train of thought.
Oh, we were talking about before we got off track, what kind of stories people tell you when they drive through.
Oh yeah. So like during the past few, like today and yesterday, working during the full moon, besides people ordering extra caffeine, sometimes if it's like a full moon in Scorpio or something, or a full moon in Cancer or Taurus, like people just really want to relax. The moon is telling you like go home and chill, take a bath, um, like take care of yourself and your emotions. People order like hardly any coffee. They want a chamomile tea instead of, they'll order like all these relaxing things, or it's kind of interesting to see the different trends. And I guess a couple people yesterday were just telling me that they don't really, couple people that normally just come in and say, "Hey, how you doing? What's up?" They're like going through it. They're rethinking what they're doing with their lives, and they're wondering with the Sagittarius full moon whether they're in the right spot at the right time or whether they need to shake things up. And I think seeing someone every day and asking them the same questions makes you think about why your answer is always the same.
Hmm. Wow.
Seeing someone every single every single day. Like, I'm not exaggerating. They come every single day, Monday through Friday, or some people come 7 days a week, every single day to the coffee shop. And every morning, sometimes I work 7 days a week, which is not ideal, but you got to do what you got to do. And there's people, see them every day. I say, "How you doing?" Just like I did yesterday. And sometimes people have the same thing to say. And then I don't know. Some days you can just tell there's a lot on their mind and they need to tell their barista.
So
They
the
need
barista might be like the new hairdresser of the new era.
probably. I do feel a little bit relieved, like that I can say goodbye to them at a certain point because I don't really know how. Sometimes I will ask people questions and they'll get kind of upset talking about something, and I don't really know how to diffuse it because I have to just, it's hard to be on the listening end of something when you have to like go away and make a drink, but you want to be there listening to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about something kind of intense. Like the economy has been really effed up lately. I don't really know what to even think of that right now, but there's a lot of people where I live at least that have lost their job or been laid off, or they're looking for a new job, or they're looking for a second job, or they can't pay their rent, or they things are just happening. And I think there's a lot of people frustrated with the whole system and they're just like not really sure what to do next. And they come tell me their frustrations about that.
Hmm.
But someone came yesterday and he's like, I just turned 40. I don't really know. I don't really know if I'm what am I doing with my life? I'm just working. He works overnight and then he goes to work during the day just to try to like make enough to feed his family. And he's basically constantly working. He might have one day off a week, but he pretty much does an overnight caretaking shift and then he goes straight to his other work during the day and works like an 8 or 12-hour shift depending on their projects. I'm like, dude, I would be so tired. But a lot
Well,
of people are doing
he
that.
needs the coffee then in between those two jobs.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Wow.
Coffee is like
Wow.
running society. So many people are just running on the juice. That's it. That's all they've got. They got the juice. And if we have to close for a day, they are like, Molly Joe, where were you yesterday? I came at 6 and I needed you. Like you weren't here. I'm like, people keep asking, are you going to be open on Memorial Day? I said, don't worry, we'll be here. It's no
I
problem.
saw an ad for a local coffee shop that said, we're adding extra hours for Memorial Day. We're open from this time to that time, so you can come by. I'm
That's
like, okay,
nice.
all right, good for you.
It's nice because a lot of people, like the most underestimated struggle of a restaurant, if you've never ran a restaurant before, you couldn't possibly understand how hard it is to constantly have staff there that are able and willing and cheerful. Every day, if you're open every day, it's so hard to make sure there's always someone there. Like sometimes just shit hits the fan and you have 5 employees and 4 of them are sick. Or
Mm.
we're out of town and one has a broken leg and the other one is just like, I don't know, freaking out or something. And you're like, well, that's a situation. We got to stay open for the people, but that has have been one of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out how to keep it open, how to keep it running, how to not run out of stuff. Just like everything's a never ending cycle. You got to make sure there's always like a back stock of something before you run out.
Right,
People
right.
do,
So the inventory in and do you keep everything inside the box where the coffee shop lives, or is there a
pretty much.
warehouse?
We don't have a warehouse or anything. We have a truck like that we go shopping in, and so we put some inventory in the truck, but we don't store any food in there. We just have like cups, lids, straws, syrups sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, things that wouldn't go bad because the car gets hot. I don't want to
Right.
store anything really in there, but if we didn't have that, I mean, the spot is probably like 30 feet by 10 feet, so it's just really small. There's not a lot of nooks and crannies to put stuff
I
in.
I remember when I still lived in Seattle, there was a Starbucks that opened, and it was I never went in this. I only walked past it. But it was a drive-through, and I think you could walk inside too. And it was made out of a container, but one of those shipping containers,
Yeah.
or maybe two. But there was an upstairs. And I
Ooh,
thought,
cool.
I bet
That's
that's
my
where
dream.
they keep
That's
their
my
stuff
dream.
up there, and
Yeah.
then they serve the coffee down there.
It honestly makes so much sense. Like, I really want to do that and just have an up seating on the roof.
That'd be cool too. Yeah.
Because the drive-through coffee shop, it's really hard for me to watch people that I know they're going to just eat on the road. Sometimes I
Yeah.
just feel like I'm setting people up for a really dangerous situation. When you give them an open-faced cream cheese and jam bagel, and you're like, see ya, here's 2 napkins. Like,
And if they have to stop fast, that's
yesterday I handed someone a bagel and it just like slid right off. Like it's on a tray and the tray, I have napkins underneath the tray and I handed it to him and he like grabbed it and the whole tray just like slid off the napkins onto, onto the pavement. I was like, all right, I'll go get you another one.
mm, mm.
He's like, I'm sorry, it just slipped right off. I was like, trust me, I get it. Wish I could say that has never happened to me, but it has.
Well, and I think everyone who's ever ordered a coffee to go has spilt it all over themselves somewhere between the car and where they were going. If they
Yeah, that
didn't,
makes sense.
yeah, because I can remember a particular day where I had my double short breve and I was taking it into an office from my car, and so I had it propped up here and propped up there, and I don't know what I was thinking. You can
Props
see
up.
it is happening. And it just spilled all over me.
Nice.
And I remember thinking, wow, and just getting back in my car and driving home. I mean, I could have wiped off. I would have been just all coffeeed up with like business clothes, a silk
Yeah.
blouse. I think I was wearing a suit or something. I'm like, ew, no, let's just not even
There's
go.
something really gross about spilling warm milk on yourself.
Yes.
I do it often at work, but well, not often, but whenever it happens, like sometimes I'll steam a big pitcher of milk and then accidentally like I'm doing stuff and my pinky catches like the edge of it and I'll just flick it right on myself, right on my pants. I'm like, oh, because it's hot. It's like twice your body temperature. And basically, it's like I do it to like 160 degrees. And then there's just, even when you're not scorching, there's something really gross about just sitting in milk.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
sticky and weird.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Okay, so even though you call it a drive-through coffee shop, you sell coffee, you sell sandwiches, bagels,
Mm-hmm.
is everything you'd want.
Grilled cheese, croissant sandwiches. I think a lot of what we sell is just in such a small town, it's so much as word of mouth.
Mm,
This lady came today and said, hey, are you the owner? I was like, no, I'm just the manager. The owner works, he lives in Arcata. She's like, oh, okay, I heard the owner was from Washington. I'm like, oh, I'm from Washington. But I'm like, who told her that I don't know. I'm like, that must have been like something that got lost in translation.
I love it. Yeah. So
Someone was like, the owner's from Washington, go see her, go get a blended oat milk matcha. And she's like, I heard about the oat milk frappe, and I heard because she was from Washington too. So I think she was like, thank God, like there's not a lot of places where you can just go trust like a good coffee shop. And you guys have good coffee. It's really good. And I'm like, yeah, in Washington, you can just kind of trust almost everyone, right? Most coffee shops, they're just gonna be good. I don't know.
I don't know if because you grew up in Seattle, so
Yeah.
you can say, yeah, I grew up in Seattle. I mean,
But this
Starbucks.
lady said she grew up off Highway 12 somewhere, like outside of Olympia.
Oh,
And she was like, even up there, like it's pretty predictable. It's pretty hard to get a bad coffee.
mm,
Interesting, because around here it is normal to get a bad coffee. Like you got to know where you're going. There's a lot of places that have real. bad coffee.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute because you're about to teach with me
Yeah.
a coffee class so you can figure out how to make good coffee at home. How
Yeah.
do you make
We can
how
teach
do
the
you go to
people.
a coffee shop and get bad coffee? What is that?
There's so many ways that that can happen, but my theory is that most places aren't being as thoroughly clean with their coffee equipment as they could be. It's
Oh,
sloppy. Like we've all tasted the, maybe not all of us, but most people can think of the flavor of a stale coffee, like a coffee pot that's been sitting there too long.
yes. Oh, I can
Ew.
smell it right
Oh,
now.
it's gross. Yeah, and it just like gets stuck on like the smell of that is really bitter, acidic, gnarly. And what I learned from talking to other baristas and experience is that Riptide, the place that I work, is very um meticulous compared to other places with their cleanliness standards. I just thought it was normal. But then I started finding out not everyone rinses out their coffee pot in between every single coffee, which is like, why wouldn't you do that? It's just rinsing. You just rinse it out. But just leaving that little bit of old coffee at the bottom and not rinsing it properly,
Oh, yeah.
ugh, gross. Then it tarnishes the whole new pot of coffee. Same with the espresso machine. If people aren't properly cleaning it, can't tell you how many places I go around town and I ask for a latte. And then once they go to the espresso machine, I see them go up to the portafilter and grab it. And it already has espresso in there that's been sitting there for who knows how long. And then they clean out the puck. And then a lot of places don't even rinse out the schmeg that was in there. There's like little coffee grounds, burnt coffee grounds stuck in the portafilter from the pressure of it sitting in there. And you could take a towel and wipe it out, or you could rinse that out, or there's like a little brush, you could like brush that out, or you could get a new clean portafilter, which is what I train my staff to do. If something's been burned, you like, if the shot's been burned, which means it's just been sitting in, because the espresso machine is really hot. It's like it has really hot water in it and it's basically cooking whatever you put in there. So as soon as you click in this freshly roasted and ground espresso, it needs to be, the water needs to go right through it. And afterwards, it's just sitting there hot, compressed, and cooking, basically. Tastes like burnt toast or like burnt coffee. So if
Yes,
you go to a place,
I've had
just
coffee that tasted burnt.
yeah,
Yeah.
or bitter, just like it's from the baristas not really either being lazy or just not knowing proper techniques about how to clean it.
Mm.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest problem around. Yeah, it's just like lack of knowledge I've noticed with the cleanliness of machines. And there's this product called Puro that you can, there's probably other products that do the same thing, but that's what we use to deep clean our machines, to deep clean the espresso machine or the coffee pots. And I think some people just think, what's the big deal? You know, why deep clean something like that? It's clean enough. It's just coffee. But you'd be surprised. It takes all that extra coffee scale off of everything and it creates just clean stainless steel. There's like no extra flavor. So I think
Mm.
that's the main culprit in people's bad coffee is either bad coffee beans to start with that aren't organic. That can really fuck up a good cup of joe or having a dirty equipment.
So you also train baristas.
Yeah.
So if you want to know how to make your coffee taste good and you're near Arcata or Eureka, California, she can help you. And she could probably help you if you live anywhere on the Zoom, right?
Yeah, and I even help baristas at home. So if you just got an espresso machine at your house, or you have a French press that you don't know how to use, or you have a grinder that you want to calibrate, or something like that, I could help with that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I'll put in the show notes how people can find you and hire you to be their coffee.
Instructor.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for your time today, Molly. It was really fun to chat.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.